Last time on Paranormal Portal.
James talked about his incredible experiences, both with what appears to be divine intervention as he was falling out of a tree.
From my right leg blowing out the tree and making me off balance, I lost track of the rope that I was hanging on to and was going towards the ground head first.
Also, an incredible experience where he and his friend were going through a woodland area and were confronted by an enormous owl.
Ran into Dennis's house, didn't even knock on the door or anything, just kicked open his door. Ran in. He's sitting in the living room. He's like, "What's wrong with you guys?" You know, Kevin said he's seen the owl, and I just seen it, and it's not 4 foot. It's bigger than that. The wing, it literally looked like 15 foot on each side of his bird.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate all of you out there, and thank you so much for your wonderful support. And remember, if you've got an experience and you'd like to be a guest on the show, please reach out to me. You can reach me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. We are welcoming back James from Indiana. Believe it or not, he's even got more. Welcome back to the show, James.
How you doing, Brent, and everybody?
That's good to have you back, brother. And thanks so much for coming on and for a third time now. And, this is kind of a first. I've certainly had people come on more than once and stuff, but, we did, 2 episodes of our first recording where you talked about your events, and then, a second, this is the second time you and I have recorded, but it's because we kind of just ran out of time in the first time. So we got together now to kind of tie it all up and share the rest of your experiences, including an incredible Bigfoot encounter that we'll get into in just a little bit here. But when you had this owl thing happen, I mean, obviously that's the kind of event that we don't hear a lot about, but it had to have been absolutely terrifying and I guess shocking, paradigm shifting. That kind of leaves a footprint on a person, huh?
Yes, all of that you just described. It was an overload of like emotion after seeing those smaller ones behind us, and they were there, I guess, maybe the whole time, and we just walked into the woods past them and weren't really looking up. We were kind of worried about the dog that runs around.
Right. Yeah, because it was the dog attack that you were most fearing because of your last experience, and then lo and behold,
yeah,
there's something.
Probably one of my scariest things that's happened to me up to that point. The dog actually coming out there.
Yeah, and that is terrifying. Dogs can be incredibly ferocious. But so you had this impact, this moment where the world stood on its head, and suddenly you're confronted by this. How did life go after this? I mean, what impact did this have on your life following this event?
Well, after it happened, I spent a lot of time in the woods trying, hoping until the leaves filled in and you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you, hoping to have another experience or a second go with this thing. But actually, dreams followed afterwards, or nightmares, or whatever you want to call them.
Oh,
and
sure.
A lot of them were very brief, where I was just waking up right away, I'm having that part of the dream, knowing that what was going to happen. And they were bad, but they were kind of short. And then one night I had a dream that my truck broke down and I had to walk on foot, and it was all farm land and irrigation ditches and stuff like that. And this is one of those dreams that you can see detail if you're looking for detail, just because it felt I knew I was dreaming, but it felt it was almost real time because of the detail. And it felt like what I walked for a couple hours, because I'm not sure why I didn't have my phone or anything, but when my truck stalled, I started walking, and I finally found a farmer's house before dark and knocked on the door, told him, "Hey, can I just stay here?" So I don't know why I wouldn't ask him just to use the phone right then and there, but
sure,
it was my dream. I stay in the barn and he okays or whatever. And while I'm laying in there, it started to become night out to where it wasn't even like dust or anything. And I heard something hit the top of the roof of the barn. So I opened the door and I walk out of this barn and I'm looking up towards the peak or the top of the roof where I heard it. And I see this owl, the big one that came after me. And it just jumps off I guess it was like a 2-story barn, so it was pretty high. So it jumped off the roof, and then it landed maybe like 10 feet away from me. And when it landed, it turned its back. And I'm not sure why, but I climbed on top of this. I've never flown in any dream before or after this. But I climbed on his back, and it was wearing like a cloak, I guess, like a hood. And it was like open in the middle, but I didn't see that part yet until we landed. But it was like, I guess, like a shawl, or I'm not sure what to describe, like how to describe it. It was just like a black cloak, I guess, with a hood. And I couldn't really see its head real good or the ears or anything, but I could just make out this enormous body. And I'm not sure why, but I didn't feel threatened. And I got on the back of his owl, and it flew me towards what felt like my house in the dark, because the lights you could see like where the towns and stuff were versus pitch black where we started. And he actually flew me to the house where I was staying at with my girlfriend at the time. And when we landed in the yard, it turned around, but I couldn't see the face of it. I could see the body and everything, the chest sticking out of like this black. It was almost like a half a jacket or something with the hood. And I walk up to it and I pull the hood down, and it's my mom's head on this owl. And I was like expecting it to be the owl with the ears and the eyeballs when I pulled down the hood. So I don't know if maybe possibly it was like God's way of saying you don't associate your mom as a threat, and you can like rest and be at ease now because the owl is not scary to you. I mean, when I pulled the hood down and realized that it was my mom's head, I'm pretty sure I gasped because I woke up doing that, like in bed. And after that, it didn't seem to bother me. I wasn't having the nightmares anymore at all. Not even like the short ones that would come. And this is 2007 when it happened. So I'm having these dreams like throughout the years after that, like the short ones. And then after I had the next one, it's because, well, I'm not saying it's because, but my first son was born, and maybe almost a year after he was born, I had a dream where the park where the Bigfoot incident happened, me and my ex-wife's car broke down right there. And we started walking, and this black owl was just dive bombing us like crying. And I just told her to take my son because he was not even a year old. And I was just like, you guys go up ahead. I told them in the dream, I was like, he's after me. So you guys just like go ahead. And I like stayed behind and was just dodging them. And I got up to the nearest house while I was running, and I started banging on their door, and they came to the door, but they wouldn't open the door. They just like moved the curtains and butt. And when they did that, I felt the pressure of like the owl slamming me into the door and like the siding on the house, and I like woke up right there.
Wow.
That one happened in almost a year.
That's incredible. And you know, I imagine events that are so powerful like this, they generate like a PTSD. So, I mean, some of that could be PTSD.
I had that going on.
Yeah. Just trying to process.
It wasn't like I was really sharing it very much, especially like after it happened.
Right.
Other than like a couple friends that I thought I could trust not to laugh at me, even though we did the same thing to the guy that's seen it before us. But,
right. Yeah.
Like I said, that humbled me. It's just ironic that happened. It was almost like it was teaching me a lesson in a way.
Yeah, that's some karma for sure. But, you know, I think it's I have to ask, you have some First Nations in you, right?
Yes, Patsy.
Is that from your mom's side?
Yes.
Okay, so that's interesting as well, that when you pulled the hood down, it revealed your mom's head, so it's like her lineage, the First Nations,
right.
And I know that animals have, well, I mean, in the shamanism and stuff, they talk about animals have medicine, and it just basically means the significance, the spiritual significance of different animals and what they represent. And so I think that's, it sounds bizarre at first, but when you start taking it apart, and I had no idea, but when you said you pulled down the hood and saw your mom's head, I was like, oh, cause that must be where the First Nations comes from.
And like in the dream, though, I thought I was going to see the owl's head. Like I didn't have that thought before, or even thought, if this is going to be something else other than the owl. So.
Sure. Yeah, that's very interesting. And so it makes you wonder if it's very spiritually symbolic as well. Like, maybe things happen for a reason, and it's hard to understand when you're in that moment, in the moment of terror. But
even though something bad happens, it might have been something worse that could have happened if that bad thing didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we only have such limited vision in this life. We can't see the grand, broad picture of everything, and how, events like this could maybe have brought us to a better place than where we were going. Just something, some change was initiated in that moment. And so maybe it's kind of spiritually significant as well. I know a lot of people walk away from these cryptid encounters with a sense of spirituality about it. And I think that that's powerful, because otherwise it's just random events. I'm sorry, what?
A little bit. It changes like who you are and like how you think. I mean,
yeah,
like that. Something so crazy that it's just unnormal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the First Nations thing is kind of interesting to me. Excuse me. I know that when I did look up for any legends that any Native Americans or any tribe that had anything about a horned owl, I found most of it under the Apache, talking about their kids telling them not to cry at night because the giant horned owl will get you. Or they even had flying heads, but I don't know if that's separate or maybe that's them before they grow into their body. But yeah, I definitely dove into anything I could find about First Nations, just because I felt like if they left any kind of legend or something that sounded crazy, it might have been true, because they were living outside.
Oh, sure.
It's not like they're living in houses like we got, or buildings or apartments and stuff. So they were getting a lot of firsthand stuff, I believe.
Oh yeah, they were directly in touch with the world around them. There's no question. But after that dream, that was kind of the end of the series of these shocking dreams dealing with the owl, then, huh?
Well, the one after it gave me a ride home and my mom's head was on it. My son was born, and then the car broke down and we got chased in front of the park where we were at for the Bigfoot incident. But and then about a year after my daughter was born, I had another dream where instead of it being nighttime like it was always, like every nightmare I'd have with the owl would be at night. This one, when we walked out the door, it was me and my son, my daughter, and my son's a little over a year older than my daughter. And we're in the yard playing around, and I went in the house for something, and like something I wouldn't do in real life, to like leave them out there and not bring them with me or something.
Sure.
And just because of like the neighborhood and stuff. But when I come back out, the owl is flying up, and it's got my daughter like hanging from its feet, and it's up on a branch that's pretty high up, a good 30, 40 feet. So my plan is to run in my house and get a gun and shoot the owl and catch my daughter, because it's like the only thing I can come up with in the dream.
Right.
And when I run into the house and I come back, he's flying away with her, and I didn't even get a chance to shoot at him or anything. And I just remember crying and
that'd be horrible.
Thinking it was like real time instead of a dream, just because of what happened or whatever. But it was just weird that I had the one dream like around a year after she was born. And then the next one that happened was a little bit before my son was my third only kid, or my last one was born. I remember not sleeping much during this too, when this last one happened, because I have a neck injury and I was doing really bad at the time. I'm doing really good now, but at the time I was staying up sometimes a day or two to sleep a couple hours just because I couldn't get comfortable from it.
Oh, sure.
But so I'm looking at the clock and I finally fall asleep that night, and I'm glad I looked at the clock because I was able to look at it when I woke up. And in 10 minutes, I had a dream where I'm now living in the city, not in Cedar Lake, like a couple towns over, and something's happened on my window in my backyard in my house. So I go to the window and I move the blind, and when I look out the window, instead of it being my fenced-in backyard with a little bit of like swing and stuff like that for the kids, it's Dennis's woods where the owl came down and it was like confusing me because I'm like, how is this woods in my backyard right now? And it was like a moonlit night. I couldn't see the moon, but it just looked like one of those nights where you can like see good because of the moon.
Yep.
And while I'm staring out, looking at the trees and going, how is this even possible? The owl slams its yellow eyes and black like body right into my window.
Oh God.
and it once again made me gasp and wake up. But this time was a little bit different. I know, like, people say that like you sweat a bucket of water or whatever, but when I woke up this time, I was gasping and I was confused because I was like, why am I wet? Like, it was literally like I jumped in the pool. Like, there was that much water on my face, my forehead, my arms, my legs. And there was even like a spot where I was sitting where I don't even know how it's even possible that much liquid came out of my body. It was like somebody threw a bucket of water on me while I was sleeping. And after that, thank God, I never had another one.
Yeah, no doubt. Jeez. Yeah, dreams can be real powerful. They can be incredibly potent, and I don't pretend to be an expert on them, but I find them fascinating, and I think they're probably symbolic of something, but that's kind of out of my pay grade personally. But
like we're going to this other place, and I like hearing other people's dreams that I know or whatever, and I remember most of any of my friends have a weird dream or whatever, I'm sure, but
sure,
I think they're kind of important. Maybe they're clues they're ahead of time at times, I guess.
Yeah, but I do want to get to your Bigfoot encounter too.
That wraps up. Like, after that dream where I woke up sweating, it all happened in 10 minutes, and I was just
boom. Yeah,
I just never heard or like seen that in real life until that day that I could sweat that much. But the Bigfoot encounter happened in 2008, so it happened a year after the owl, and Dennis was with me at that time, and that's where we were going to his house. We were cutting through the woods. But it was probably... So the Bigfoot incident happened in early July, and it's not even... It's probably a mile and a half from Dennis's woods where this happened. I don't know if it's any correlation to it or anything like that, but we were going fishing because they have a little 12-acre lake in the park or whatever, and we were using the asphalt trail that goes around the lake that people walk on and stuff just to exercise or if you want to cut through to go fishing. And we noticed there was three roll off like dumpsters for like demolition and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the old playground they built in like the early 80s when I was a kid was all the like treated wood, the beams and stuff were rotting out. So they built this other big fancy one like on the other side of the park, not even by the lake. And they were throwing the wood and the metal all together in the dumpster. And it was a little embarrassing to admit, but this is like what we're doing, or if we weren't doing it, we would have never had this experience. But we realized they still had the cast aluminum slides for this heavy duty playground still up, and there was 2 of them that were pretty solid, like the spiral type slides. So they went up like 2 stories.
Oh wow!
And it was still bolted to the ground, and those other ones. And I told Dennis, I was like, well, they're going to get charged for the dumpsters regardless for the weight, and we'd be saving. We knew insurance wise they probably wouldn't let us take the slide or whatever. So I told him, I was like, you know what? I think we can unbolt it in half and possibly carry it to the other side of the park to pick it up later. Which, like I said, this is a little embarrassing. I never really admitted this on air or recorded just because it is like I'm ashamed. But like I said, this wouldn't have happened if we weren't doing it. And then, so we go fishing for a while, and then we go back to my house, and we got the wrenches and sockets and everything, and spray to loosen up the bolts. And we figured where we'd fish, and when they closed it, the park, they come through and do a sweep and make sure everybody's out and the cars are out. And we parked at a buddy's house and walked in with our fishing stuff. So they had no idea we were there when they closed the park, and we just waited a little while, and they did another sweep through the park just to see if anybody was there, I guess. And after that, we went to this spot. We were fishing on this like peninsula, this point that stuck out, and we walked off of there on the asphalt trail, which would be the back end of the lake, and we had to come towards the entrance of this asphalt trail to get to the playground, or at least more over. So we left our poles casted out because that was what we were going to tell them. We were just there catfish fishing if they came back or something and caught us. But yeah, everything's fine, and we decided we were going to spray the bolts one more time, and then try to loosen up any ones that we could, just so we could get them all done or whatever. And on the way back to the poles and our drinks, we got maybe 20 yards away from this old playground, and it was very unnerving because what started next was like, it sounded like a woman screaming because like somebody's trying to like kill her or something, or doing it. And that's what we thought it was. So I told Dennis, I was like, my ID and my wallet's in my backpack and my fishing stuff. And so I just told him, if somebody's doing something bad, I don't think we can stop it. I don't know what's going on, but I don't really, if somebody dies, I don't want my wallet to be there when we run out.
Yeah.
And it gets left behind. So I told him, I was like, it was so loud. I told him, I was like, the people, there was a house that was up by the entrance that's pretty far away, but I thought for sure they would be able to hear this screaming because it was so loud. And I guess we just sat there for a while because we didn't know what to do. And then a second one started up. And when that happened, I really started to not think it was a woman, just because I was like, how could there be two in two different directions, like away from each other, making close to the same noise? And yeah, I just sat there, and I even had my eyes closed sometimes because I was just trying to listen to trying to figure out what I was listening at, or try to figure out what I was listening to.
Right.
And next thing you know, I described it at first like it was almost like a mechanical noise, but not like a machine, but like a dump truck trailer, like the tailgate slamming, just like the metal on metal. I could feel. Dennis said he couldn't because I asked Dennis. I was really freaked out when I could start feeling something like hitting in my heart, and it wasn't like constant. It was just like it would do it maybe every 30 seconds, and I'd feel it like a shock wave of like something exploding or something. But there was no explosion noise, just the screaming. And then we started hearing what sounded like cast iron dragging on like concrete, or like that type of noise, like a heavy cast iron door or something. And I have no idea what that is, but it makes me wonder if that's anything to do with the portal, because it really didn't make sense for Bigfoot or multiple Bigfoot to be in this park and risk getting caught, other than it closes at dark. I'm sure there's a lot of deer back there because nobody's allowed to hunt like any of that property.
Okay.
So maybe that's what was happening. A portal was opening and they were coming out maybe to eat. I mean, I after putting all this together and thinking about it for so long, it makes me wonder if some of this stuff just comes here from somewhere else to eat. Because just like you hear a dog moan, eating garbage, roadkill, an animal, a person, whatever he can get. But it's like he'll settle. Even Bigfoot will like settle for anything. Like when it comes to food, if they can. Right. So I don't know. It makes me feel like I don't think they live here. They visit here for food for some reason. But yeah, we were getting to the point where I was gonna say this isn't a lady getting killed, and I don't want to find out what it is. So we were gonna just ditch the fishing stuff and leave it, and just try to come back in the morning. And yeah, we listened for a while just to see, because I did want to get my stuff. I had quite a bit of money wrapped up in it, and eventually the screaming kind of drifted off, like away from the edge of the lake, like because the screaming was happening in two different places in between us and back to the peninsula. Okay. So when they started to go like away from us into the woods, then like a third noise started, and the third noise kind of sounded like a large bird. I don't know what a dinosaur bird would sound like or anything, but it sounded like kind of bird-like. Okay. And then
like a squawking kind of noise, or like when you say bird-like, can you?
It was like a dinosaur type noise. Like I don't know what a dinosaur would sound like, but what they made like Jurassic Park sound.
Okay, gotcha.
Like almost like not a roar, because I don't think well, I guess T-Rex kind of would roar if they're right about the way it sounds, but yeah, it just sounded like a bird, and I started hearing a struggle where there was definitely something caught in like bushes, thick bushes or vines or whatever, and it was just pulling and making a huge commotion, but it was kind of getting further away from us, like leaving the property of the park. Oh, okay. And after it gave us that little bit of space, I thought, well, let's go back, get the fishing stuff in my backpack, and let's just get out of here and let's not do this. Right. And we were actually going to do it the first night, and there was a lot of people there, so we decided to leave, and we came back, I think 2 days later. That's the 2 days later when we're done. So it's weird, though, that if we would have maybe did it the day we originally were going to, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Like, it's just odd, though, that it happened and we like moved the day to go back to it. But yeah, we got back to the fishing stuff, and I loaded up all my stuff, got all the poles reeled in or whatever, and we decided we weren't going to do it. And when we went to walk off of the peninsula to get on to the asphalt trail, it sounded like it came from at least a mile away. I mean, it's middle of night, probably midnight or 1 o'clock at this point, somewhere close to there. And it sounded like this thing traveled a quarter mile in like low seconds.
Whoa.
Like in anything that was in its way, tree, big tree, bush, anything, it sounded like it was bulldozing through the woods. It sounded like somebody was driving a truck that didn't have like a motor noise. Just hit whatever was in the way.
Right.
And that ran up and stopped short of us probably a good 100 feet or more. And that terrified me pretty bad. Like, I was worried, but I told Dennis, I was like, maybe it's these owls and they're trying to get a deer and they're trying to lift it up off the ground maybe, and it's tangled in something. That was the only thing I was reasoning with, because that's the only thing I saw up to that point that was that big or that type of thing.
Right.
And but we had it on the peninsula for a good hour probably, and we didn't hear any stick break, any movement from where that thing stopped or anything. And I told Dennis, I was like, well, the other one walked away that were screaming. Maybe this big one followed. Because at first I thought it was birds, but when this thing was coming at us, I could hear the foot or his feet like taking the steps as he's like charging from that distance to us. But yeah, just the sound of that and the speed of that in such a short time really freaked me out, because I was just like, okay, we're not dealing with the owl.
Right.
Something's on the ground. And I know Dennis looked scared, and I'm sure I did too, just because I couldn't see myself. But I was just like, I really didn't know what to do. And
right.
I told him, I was like, if this thing comes at us, I don't know if this is going to help, but let's just swim for it. Let's jump in and try to swim across the lake, because obviously we're not being able to walk the one way out to the asphalt trail.
Right.
And yeah, we didn't hear any noise or anything for a good hour or more. I was just like, you know what? I'm not scared. I don't know why I said that. I said, I'm not scared. Let's go. And I had a fishing pole, 2 fishing poles in my hand, and a backpack on. And I started walking out on the trail, and when I did, Dennis was on the safe side behind me, almost on the lake side, and I was on the side where the thing stopped short of us. So I thought maybe it went to the direction of the other ones that were like, you could still hear them out there, but they were further out. So I thought maybe somehow it just left or whatever, because it hasn't made any sound. It hasn't charged us or anything.
Right.
And we take maybe 10, 12 steps on the asphalt pavement, and I could see pretty good in the dark. And I was trying to like let my eyes adjust real good, because it was pitch black where we were looking. Like when you were out by the lake, you could see a little bit because of the moon. But when you were like under the trees, it was pretty dark. But as soon as we started making those steps, there was a rectangle shaped like box or curtain looking thing, and it was only like maybe 7-8 feet tall, but it was like a rectangle shape, like it was long. And I was confused, and I was gonna tell Dennis to look at it, because I was just like confused why I could see further in the woods on like each side of it. Like the thing was blocking like a rectangle sensor bar or something, and I could see a little, like another 10, 15 feet maybe on each side of this box, like further in the woods. So it stuck out like that. It was just a black rectangle. And I don't know, I think maybe Dennis was looking forward while I was looking that way, just so we had both sides covered as far as like keeping an eye out. And I seen it stand up, and when it stand up, it like stepped out of the sensor bar, and then when it stood up, I could like see the shape of its head, and it just started running. And I froze as far as like thinking of something to do just because I was just like, we're dead.
Yeah.
And the thing's running straight for us, and it stops maybe 20 yards. And when it roars, and it went like through my body.
Oh,
like it, at a point, it almost like it was probably 20, 30 seconds long. And when it roared, it was almost like I could feel the wind a little bit or something, like the sound, I guess, not the wind, but I could feel like sound waves. But
oof.
My sternum started shaking like a kazoo, I guess, like the kid's toy, how you just blow into it and it just like makes it weird. I could feel like my sternum shaking, and I'm assuming I threw my poles out of my hand because I don't remember them after that point.
Okay.
I think I did it to like run faster.
Sure.
And I'm on the left side of this path looking, and Dennis is like on my right side. So when I'm turning and I'm seeing this thing run and it stops and it starts roaring, I complete my left turn and turn up the rest of the way behind me because it was, I don't know, I guess it was a bluff charge maybe, but I started running on the asphalt pavement and I no longer had my fishing stuff in my hand or my backpack on.
Wow.
And I think I threw it to like move faster.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
The scenario. And, yeah, it didn't like pursue us or anything, but it messed with me. Like, I knew where I was at. I knew I was in Lemon Lake and I was on the back end of the lake on the trail, but I couldn't remember why I was there.
Wow.
Like for at least a full minute, if not maybe two, while I'm running. Yeah. I'm trying my hardest to remember why we were even back. And then when I started thinking about that, I was like, Dennis. Because I was looking left, so I finished my left turn to turn backwards to start running when it stopped. And I lost track of Dennis in view because I was already looking to my left. And when I turned around, I never seen him. And I just started running. And it took about a minute and a half, 2 minutes for my memory to come back for me to remember. Like I said, I knew where I was at, but I didn't remember what I was doing. I didn't remember Dennis was there until I started thinking about it. And then I still didn't stop when I realized I left Dennis behind.
Right.
And I just slowed down because I was like, what am I going to do? Like I could see the shape or silhouette of a Bigfoot, but that thing, I'm just like picturing that in my mind thinking, well, what am I going to do if it does have Dennis? I have a gun. Not that a gun would have helped. It probably would have got us definitely killed. Cause I'm wondering if it was babies or females and the male came in, or I don't know. People say the female sometimes is more aggressive, but I don't know what the scenario was. Maybe it was the mom and the other two were babies.
Right. Wow.
But I'm just saying, like, they were doing this. It sounded like a woman screaming. And the more I thought about it later on, I thought, I wonder if they were looking in somebody's window and a woman screamed and it was like something they were able to store as memory. Like they were mimicking somebody else that screamed that sounded like a lady.
Right.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I was just, it made me wonder later on.
It's interesting because some First Nation tribes describe the Bigfoot or Sasquatch as the ventriloquist, like it copies things. And so that may be very well what it was doing, was just copying a sound it had heard.
Right. I kind of either think that, or maybe it was like a mating call thing.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible.
What really throws me off, though, is that, like, I would have expected the subdivision that is on the edge of the park, like in the back entrance, that somebody would have had a window open and, like, called the cops and been like, something's out there screaming.
Wow.
So I don't know if, like, the noise is contained in the park or...
Yeah, that's a great question.
Could hear it, like, outside the park.
Sure. Or if they heard it and went, just did a great big nope, I'm not involved in this. The one thing about the vocalizations that I hear, and it comes up all the time, is the power of them. That it sounds just beyond human. It's so powerful. And maybe anybody hearing that would have went, nope.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I threw my fishing stuff and shot my backpack to run faster.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I was like setting a record for a man running on the ground, because I couldn't believe like how fast I was able to run. And Dennis is actually a few inches taller than I am, so I figured he'd beat me in the race because he's got me beat by like another 6 inches in height. So
wow.
But when I started to think about Dennis, I slowed down because I was like, man, what am I going to tell his sister? What am I going to tell his mom? Like, I'm thinking about it already. I'm like, well, I can't tell him what just happened, or can I? I'm like, I was like thinking that in my head. And I slowed down, and I was going to stop and turn around because I thought Dennis, he'd probably go back for me if I needed help, or, I had to at least look. But the thing never like pursued or never chased us after that, after it ran up and stopped that little bit. It just, like I've been to the zoo or the circus where you hear the lion roar or whatever, you feel it through your body.
Sure.
Like, it was like that time. It felt like a million.
Yeah.
Just because of the way it was, it was like sound waves hitting you. Like, so I don't know if it did it on purpose or it has those abilities or what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great question. But people are affected by those sounds. A lot of people refer to it as being zapped. Like, and the way you're describing like that amnesia effect. That sounds like being zapped.
Yeah, it was almost like I said, I knew where I was at, but I couldn't remember
why.
I was actually thinking, what am I going to tell the cops? Because somebody heard that roar is what I was thinking, and I figured they were going to call the cops before I could leave or we could leave. So I was really worried that, and then now I didn't even have my fishing pole. I didn't even remember that I was back there fishing. Like I said, I knew where I was at, but I couldn't remember. I didn't have them in my hand anymore. So
wow, yikes!
Yeah, we ran out of there.
When did you find Dennis again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I slowed down to turn to go back for him. I didn't quite stop. Like, I was just jogging slow at that point, and he blew past me, and I just said, "Thank you, God." And we both ran. We didn't say a word. We both ran out of this asphalt trail, across the couple parking lots, the baseball field, another field, through the gate to our buddy's parents' house. Got in the car, drove to my house. Got to my house. I locked the door, which I never do. Like when I was home, I never did.
Sure.
And I locked the door because I just didn't feel safe at that point. I was just like, and we sat there like across from each other on couches in my house, and I was just like, finally, like after 10 minutes, I was like, what just happened?
Right.
And he's just like, his words were either Bigfoot's in Lemon Lake or dinosaurs are still alive and they're back there like doing stuff just because of the noises.
Right. Wow. Man, brother, I mean, it's one thing to have one incredible event happen, but you've had several. And I got to commend you, though, because even after the owl thing, you're like, well, I went back out to try to see it, and I was thinking, oh, my God. I didn't
go back to that park to get my fishing stuff the next day.
Okay.
And I probably lost out on like $400 or $500 probably in fishing stuff between the poles and my artificial like equipment.
Yeah.
And I didn't go back for at least 10 years. And the only reason why I did was because my kids wanted to see where it happened.
Oh, okay.
So we went there in the daytime, and I took them to the new park that they had. So it wasn't like we were gonna take away the kids' slides in the park. They already built a new one, and
sure,
those are going in the dumpster. So
wow,
it's a little embarrassing, but it's like that. If we weren't doing that, I would be on the fence, I guess. after seeing the owl, I'd be like, why wouldn't Bigfoot be alive or
Yeah.
the dog man?
Yeah.
I guess imagine that I'd see him one day, like in Northern California or Washington or like up in the mountains, not. So that's what makes me wonder if stuff is like coming through portals, because
maybe
they would really have to risk it bad. There is a way through that park in and out both sides they could use a wood line and stay covered, especially at night.
Mm-hmm.
But it really doesn't make sense that they would be. It's like they were there because they knew there was probably deer there,
mm-hmm.
and there's a lot, like no one hunts it because it's a park,
right?
So and it's closed at dark, so no one's allowed to be back there, like after they close the park.
Okay.
So it's almost like to me, I think these things are coming here to feed. Not sure why they don't have food where they're from, but that's what it seems like. And it's almost like they got to follow. Almost like they got to follow some type of rules,
right?
Where unless somebody's being stupid, like if I would have shot at him, I probably would have got me and Dennis both killed.
Yeah.
Just because it would have got aggressive, or if I would have just shot and it would have been like a young one, and the mom or dad's there.
Yeah,
that's probably game over.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think it's interesting. I've of course heard about the whole portal theory with having to do with the cryptids, and I think it's fascinating. I can't pretend to know either way,
right?
But it is interesting that you heard the metallic sounds and what would account for that, and I can't pretend to know, but maybe you're right.
That part really confused me because I could feel the shock waves, like it was hitting my heart. And then I asked him if he could feel that hitting his heart. And he was like, no, he just took his head down. Wow. Well, why am I feeling it?
Well, another good thing is that you weren't alone for all this, because I think that would be so much worse, but at least having someone there with you and someone that experienced it as well. I think
it made me like, I mean, I'm a few years older than Dennis, but like, made me not completely panic because not because he was there, but just out of like pride, I guess. Like, we got to get out of this, but I don't know what we're gonna do.
Right. But just imagine duplicating that, but being alone, and it would be the fear factor would be so much higher because you're all by yourself. You got nothing or nobody, so that's good. And besides, after an event like that, and having had, a close encounter of my own, I wasn't alone, and thank God I wasn't. And over the years, of course, you question it going, well, is that really how it went?
Got somebody to talk to.
There. Exactly. But when the other person can corroborate the events the same as you experienced them, and it's like, well, there you go. I mean, it's not just my head getting goofy because, they experience the same thing. So that's really powerful. Right. But wow, brother, I think that's amazing.
Yeah. What's crazy is when like the sighting happens and like two different people that are there see two different things.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like the same thing they're looking at, but they see something different. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a whole different kind of psychology, I guess, being in a situation like that, because I'm sure all of the stress meters are at 15, out of a 1 through 10, everything's just off the charts. Right. So I'm sure there's obviously stress factors that can indicate how you perceive events, but maybe it is something more enigmatic than that. Maybe it's a phenomenon we just don't understand, but it manifests separately for different people, and who knows?
It's not Earth rules.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like comprehend it.
Right. It's maybe working on some other kind of principles that we don't understand, but in any case, I'm glad you made it out of there, and I don't blame you for not going back. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't either.
Right. No, I would like to leave a recorder out there at some point. The summer hits. Mm-hmm. But I actually have another story to share that ain't mine that happened back there.
Sure, go ahead.
And it was my dad's buddy, and I thought he was joking around one day, and I was asking him, I was like, you ever catch any catfish in there after dark? Like, because he lived right by the park, so he'd like sneak in at night to fish if he was supposed to. He's like, yeah, you catch a couple, and then you wouldn't catch anything else. But he's like, I've heard some stuff back there that you wouldn't believe. And I looked at him. I didn't tell him what happened to me and Dennis, but I looked at him and I was like, try me. I thought, what are you trying to say? And he was like, well, if you had two buffalo and they were wrestling and they could stand up and like throw each other around, he's like, that's what I heard one night. Wow. Well, I don't know if he had something like that going on, or they go there and feed sometimes. I'm not sure.
Wow. Yeah, obviously he's heard something, but man, that's incredible.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell him what we were doing because I didn't want my dad to think I'm like out stealing stuff and he was taking it because they were putting it in a dumpster or whatever. But
sure, yeah.
I was just like, wow, it's crazy that he also heard something back. He said it was on the other side of the lake where we were at.
Oh.
We were there, and he was on the parking lot side, like where you first walk up.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know if we were interrupting dinner time once again, or
maybe
what the deal is.
Yeah, maybe. Or...
I also thought it was crazy when Deborah was doing that reading, and she was saying, watch out or be prepared to see Bigfoot or something at some point in time, because it makes me wonder if she was getting the answers about the owl, and then because that happened a year later, she started getting
probably
that info, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
But I haven't been able to contact her, not yet, because I've just been too busy, but I'm going to try to get to it this week.
Good. Yeah, definitely follow up with her. She's a pretty amazing person. And
yeah, I'd like to hear what else she has to say, because
yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of answers is, I guess, all I'm in it for.
Yeah, aren't we all, brother? And I hope you get the answers you're looking for and can find reason for it. But I really want to thank you for coming on a third time and talking with me.
Problem.
It's been
I got a couple more things that happened that were minor. I don't know if you want me to fill those in, but those happened after this.
Oh, sure. Why not? Go ahead.
I'm moved to the city because of that injury, and my grandfather had an extra house, so he just said, put a roof on it and do whatever needs to be fixed, and you could stay there for free while you're going through all kinds of physical therapy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we the first week we moved there and lived there, I'm standing outside smoking a cigarette, and I assumed at first it was just a big dog, and it looked like the color of a coyote, but it was a little bit bigger than coyote. It was more like, not the size of like the giant wolves that are out in the middle, like out in the wild, but like it was the size of like a good sized wolf.
Okay.
And it popped the lid on the bigger like garbage can, and it was just dipping its head in there. And I was like, that's weird that there'd be big coyote. Because I assumed it was just like a super big coyote. I was like, that's weird that there's big coyotes in the city. And that probably happened in 2014 or something. And then we ended up moving there to a town over from the house that I was staying at with my grandpa, and we were buying a house rent to own. And while I'm living there, one night when I went to leave, I could hear a cat, like, when like a cat is fighting another cat.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know that sound.
Like starts to like growl and hiss and like do the weird cat noises.
Yep.
Well, when I walk out my door, there's a bike trail that was next to my yard or my fence, and this cat was on the bike trail, but the cat was pretty much all white. Like I don't know if it was like a little dirty white, but it was pretty much just a white cat, and I could only see that, and I could see like how they turn their body like into like a half circle. And when I get around the house to see, because I'm assuming it's another cat that it's fighting with, when I get around the house to see what it is, it's a white fox.
A white what?
A white fox. I mean, I know there's silver ones, and there's white ones in Antarctica or whatever.
Yep.
But I'd never seen a white fox until that night, and I was just like, this big white alley cat is squaring up with this big white, or not big, but it was just a regular sized white fox.
Wow.
And I think I scared the fox away because he seen me standing there in the yard next to fence.
Uh-huh.
So he took off, and the cat went the other way. But I think he was going to get the cat. But I got on the computer once again. I'm like, where is there white foxes?
Yeah, there's Arctic foxes that are white, but
right, that are white. And so yeah, it looked like that, but it wasn't that big. It was just like the fox. Well, and you're in Canada. Is there foxes up there?
Well, no, I'm in Idaho, the tip of Idaho,
okay.
but I'm also from Minnesota, and we have the red foxes there, and they're here as well. So, yeah.
So yeah, like a small full-grown fox, like not like a big.
Yeah.
'Cause I know there's big ones too, but
yeah,
but it was just weird that it was all white.
Wow. Yeah, that's unusual. I mean, albinism can happen anywhere to any animal. I mean, there's all white deer and stuff.
But it was almost like it had meaning because it was like, why is there a white cat?
Sure.
And a white fox making the circle. Like the cat was half of the circle and the fox was almost like bending to match the cat, like a cat would fight. And I would assume the fox would have probably gotten the cat.
Yeah, more than likely.
I think because I was like stepping off the porch going that way, that it finally decided to back down. And then, yeah, I still live in the city now.
Okay.
But every year it seems like one minor thing happens. And a couple of years back, I'm outside smoking a cigarette. It's late. And I watched this coyote. It wasn't a big one or anything, just a full-size regular coyote. And it came out of like this marsh wetland across the street, like by my house and by the school. And it got to the corner of like the road, the 4-way intersection, which had on the school side had like these tiger lily flowers, or I think that's what they might have been, and the sign for the school. And when the coyote went behind it, it disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Like there wasn't that much cover, and the sign wasn't like, it was on a skinny pole, so it wasn't like blocking very good for this thing, but it just disappeared.
Wow.
And then I thought later on, I'm like thinking about it, because I didn't walk over there because I had my kids in my house, so I wasn't going to like walk way over there across the street and go look to see what's there. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it all night. I was like, man, that's weird. And then when I did get a chance to go over there, I went over there because I was wondering maybe if it had like pups and it was like a bedding area or something.
Oh, sure.
Flowers.
Uh-huh.
And there wasn't nothing. I was just like, okay, what's happening there?
Yeah, I don't know, but I would wager that because of the experiences you've had, I think these experiences do leave a footprint on us, and it's not just stress, but I think it also kind of awakens some part of us that maybe our ancestors were well aware of, but for us it's mostly
definitely dealing with it better, because I just like not have like constant terrifying encounters, but I'm not like surprised when something happens.
Yeah, I think you just got a brand new awareness of this stuff. I've always said I think there's crazy stuff going on around us all the time. It's just that
that we're not seeing. Yeah,
we're conditioned not to look. Like through our 3 dimensions and our electronics and stuff, we just kind of get this tunnel vision. So I think in your case, definitely something was awakened in you, and you're probably just so much more sensitive to it.
My daughter put together the tree thing and thought maybe this stuff started happening after that, and I was like, thanks, little girl, just because. I was looking for an answer, and she kind of gave me one. I was like, you know what, I'm not really looking into that. But
I think she could be right.
Oh, sorry.
I think she could be right. Yeah, like that was a transitional moment for you in your life, and it opened up your eyes and gave you access to these experiences. I'm not saying, obviously your friend saw, both of these things, but
thank God.
Yeah, thank God. You're right. But I mean, if it was just you, maybe it would be more spiritual, but since it was both of you, it seems to be either in something that's spiritual but physical, or something that's physical, but in either case, they seem to be finding you pretty regularly.
It makes me wonder if like people are giving off a frequency and they're kind of feeling it to jump in.
Yes, I think so. I think that's people.
Not like they're wasting, not like they're draining energy, but they're like using people to open something. Maybe I'm not sure.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
it sounds a little crazy, but like
Maybe.
I'm past crazy now.
Well, I mean, that's the problem, is that there's no real answers that we have capable of determining, but any ideas are just as valid as any others. But I would say that, certainly.
I don't close doors because you really don't know what's happening.
Don't, and even all of the experiences I've heard through the years, it just, I just have more of an open mind now than ever for some of this oddness, because I can't explain it,
Right. Another thing I noticed too, like keeping track and watching shows and like learning more as I'm going along, is lost my train of thought.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It'll come back to me. But I did have one other one after that, and we were driving near the marsh where the coyote came out, but on the other side of like all the vegetation on a different road. And it was late. It was probably midnight or something, and it was me and my cousin driving, and we got done working a whole night or whatever, 3 miles and stuff. And I made him throw on his bright lights. So I was like, man, what is that up there, like on the road coming out of the cattails? And it looked like a weird dog with shaggy hair, like one of those sheep dogs with like the hair over their eyes. Like it looks like a rug. They're like wearing a rug almost. It kind of looked like that, and I thought it had like puppies with it. So he kind of like speeds up before they cut across the road just so we could get a better look. And when we get closer, what I thought were puppies were coyotes, and there was like 3 of them running with this shaggy haired dog that looked like, I don't know, like a standard of name for a picture of like the dog, but it was like,
sure,
I think they're sheep dogs with like the hair, like it looks like they got like rug hair.
Yep.
So that's kind of, I'm not saying that's what it was, but that's kind of what it looked like. But when we realized what I thought were puppies were full-size coyotes, and that made the other thing way bigger.
Yeah, no doubt.
We thought like those were puppies just from a distance, and that was like just a mom or something.
Right. Wow.
But that's like right, like in between. There's like one wetland in between the city, so it was like I live on the one edge, and then we're cut to the other side of it. So at least I still get somewhat woods or wetland, but yeah, most of it's city.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly there's weird stuff in cities as well. It's just, again, people are so conditioned to their physical environments, they don't pay much attention, but there's lots of craziness in cities. And it's not just people craziness. There's lots of weirdness out there, and it can be anywhere and everywhere. But it's been great catching up with you again, brother. Thank you so much for coming back on and doing this.
I like to hear other people's stories because, I think that's how we're going to put it together. I actually remember, too, what I was going to say.
Oh.
I was going to say, sometimes when people argue, like some people want to say this thing's flesh and blood, some people want to say this thing's supernatural or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people argue so much and they don't realize they're both right.
Yes.
Yep. And they're like, they're fighting each other instead of sharing information. They're like figuring out possibly 2 arguments or they shouldn't be because they're both right.
Right. And honestly, every idea is right until it's wrong. And we know it's wrong when you can prove it wrong. So any idea is just as right as any other idea.
No.
So that's certainly something I've always tried to foster on the show, on the portal, is that I don't know. I don't have the answers, and I don't know anybody that does. I know there's lots
That's why I was just sharing a little bit that I've seen, because I think everybody else that brings their little mysterious piece of the puzzle and puts it up will get a little bit of picture in time.
Yep. Everybody gives us pieces to the puzzle. And I appreciate you bringing more pieces to this puzzle, brother. And thank you so much for making this happen again. It's always great to talk to you, James.
Yep, no problem. And, I'm probably going to get out in the outdoors a little more now that my kids are a little bit older, at least the youngest one finally.
Sure.
I pray they don't see anything crazy, but I told them I'm a magnet sometimes.
Well, you have a wonderful night. Get some rest, and thanks for making this happen.
Okay, no problem, Brent. You too. Stay safe, man.
All right, brother. Take care. Good night.
All right.
Well, the only time she really turned with that famous was when I rode across the creek and got down off the horse. She turned to look at me.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio, as well as finding us on Twitter. We're on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, Portl, and we'd love to have you stop by our YouTube page and subscribe and check out our shows there. We got hundreds of shows, Journeys into the Paranormal Portal, so I hope you'll check it out, guys. We're over there at youtube.com/Paranormal Portal, so hope to see you guys soon. We'll be back, of course, for more podcasts in the coming days. So we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can.